Today is Test Zion Adar Tashim Test. This is Shir Kali with Rav Gafni, Parshas Ki Tisei.
We're turning in this week's Parsha, SHK Ki Tisei, to chapter Lamed Aleph. Aleph, at the beginning of chapter Lamed Aleph. At the beginning of the parsha, we've been told the mitzvah of matzah shekel, and then the shemen mishchas kodesh, shemen mishcha, and the ketores, the thing they wash their hands on, what's called, I've forgotten the name. And then it says, Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe leimer. Re'ei Korosi V'Shem Betzalel ben Uri ben Hur Lamate Yehuda. The says to Moshe, look, Re'ei means to see, to take a look, as it were, to see, that I called by Betzalel ben Uri ben Hur to the tribe of Yehuda. I called him by name. Korosi b'shem b'tzalel. V'amale yosei ruach elikim. I filled him with a divine spirit. V'chachma v'savuna v'das. I filled him with wisdom, with understanding, and with knowledge. V'chol malacha. And the kavanah of those inyanim chachma tavuna v'das was that he should be able to do all the malachas. Chol malacha, any malacha that you would require, despite the complexity of the malachas. Lachshev machashoves, to think profound thoughts. Lases bezor v'chesev v'nacheses. In the making of the stones, the little males, to make the fitting places for the stones. Over in the making of wood, lases, b'chol malacha. V'ani hinei nosati itoi, and together with him I placed another person, Oliyav ben Achisamoch lamate Dan. And then he adds, Ubelev kol chacham leiv, and in the heart of every wise heart, which a person who has a wise heart, every mensch, that he's a chacham in his heart, literally. Asati chacham, I've given them wisdom, v'osu eish kol asher tzvisicha, and they will do everything that I have commanded you. And then he reconciled in detail, well, not in great detail, but in a general sort of a detailed way, all the inyanim of the Mishkan. And then he comes over in Parsha, in Pasuk Yud Beis, and he warns Moshe Rabbeinu about the Din of Shabbat. And he says in Pasuk Yud Gimel, Ve'ato, and you, Daber al Bnei Yisrael, Leimer. Ach eshav sesai tishmeru. O my shabboses shemaskadem ki oisi beini uveinechem lo derisechem lo das ki ani Hashem mekadishchem. So we see that immediately following the description of how Betzalel and Oliyav and Achisamoch are going to make the Mishkan, and they're going to carry out all the malachas connected with the Mishkan. Immediately following that, a warning about the Indian of Shabbos, even though we've already been told in the Aseret Adibri. We've already been told the mitzvah from Shabbos, both the mitzvah saseh and the mitzvah lo saseh of Shabbos, the positive and the negative aspect of Shabbos. Nonetheless, at the completion of the whole Inyan Mishkan, in this parsha upon him, there's a further warning to Moshe Rabbeinu that he must tell the Yidden the Inyan of Shabbos. Rashi tells us what was the point of bringing it in further here. That you might have thought that since the Mishkan is such an essential thing, so much is devoted in the Torah to the Mishkan, you might have thought that the Mishkan is Deich Shabbos. Being as it is such an important and tremendously essential inyan to the Yidden, therefore he says, no, you must realize that despite the tremendous emphasis in the Torah on the Mishkan, but you mustn't allow it to be Deich the Shabbos. No, Adar, you have to be mafsik, even though I've pressed you and I've made you Rudufim with reason. Says Rashi, I've made tremendously energetic and almost as if you've been chased after to keep up with all the intensity of the Malacha or the Mishkan. Nonetheless, you have to realize that it's all got to stop on Shabbat. And then we see that there's literally a double warning, because first of all he says, Vayayim Hashem el Moshe leimer v'ato, that you, the bear of Bnei Israel, and then the Rebbe uses the expression ach eshab seisai. However, what is one other ach is called what's called a miut, and a miut comes to as it were, cancel out something that I might have thought, and that comes to tell me not. So if you look carefully, I'm only just going to suggest it now. If somebody who's more interested, we ought to take a more careful look later. I don't want you looking so carefully now, because you'll miss out on some other points. But if you look carefully, you'll see that there are really two. The way Rashi describes it, there are two warnings are given to Moshe Rabbeinu. First of all, the Rebbe said, even though I commanded you to tell the Yidden that they should build the Mishkan, but don't be easy in your eyes. It shouldn't be an easy thing. They should push away the Shabbos because of the importance of the Malacha of the Mishkan. And then the next phrase, Rashi says, Achas Shabbos Tisei Tishmoiru, Afopi, that they've been commanded by me to be Rudufin, whose reason to be literally chased after in a tremendous hurry in the importance of the Malacha. Nonetheless, don't push away Shabbos in front of the Mishkan. So we see that there's a separate warning to Moshe Rabbeinu, and then a separate warning to the Klal Yisrael, that they shouldn't think that the importance of the Mishkan can be push away the essentiality of Shmiras Shabbat. So I asked the question, why would Rashi double that up? Why would he see that as two inyanim? And particularly when he talks to Moshe, he says, Ato, even though I commanded you to command the Yidden, nonetheless you shouldn't take Shabbos easy in your eyes. I mean, why not would Moshe Rabbeinu take anything easy in his eyes? Why would we have to warn him, especially that he shouldn't think that the Shabbos can be pushed away? And then there's a separate inyan in the Torah to tell the Yidden, halacha l'maisa, they're not allowed to push away the Shabbos for the sake of building the Mishkan. So I saw the Shaila, what is the emphasis on two warnings? Was it one to Moshe Rabbeinu, as it were, or one to the Jewish people? So we go back to the beginning of the whole Inyan, and we see that the Eibishter told Moshe Rabbeinu that he set aside Betzalel ben Uri ben Chor, Lamate Yehuda, and then he says that he's got to have Das, Chochma, Bina, or Tvuna, and Das, because you have to do all these wondrous malachas. So comes along Rashi, and Rashi says, what is Chochma? So Rashi says, Masha Odom Shoymea Dvorim Me'acherim V'lomot. Chochma is things that you heard from others, and you paid careful attention, and you learned. In other words, that you benefited from the wisdom of others, and you took it to your own store of knowledge of the word. Das ist Chochmah. And then he says, what is Tavuna? What is Tavuna? So he says, Tavuna is Meivin Dova Miliboy Miteik Dvarim Shaloma. Tavuna is that he already understands in his own self, and he makes his own conclusions based on certain things that he learned, B'derech HaChochmah. Aber das ist der Pshat that he is Meivin Dova Miteik Dova, as is brought in Divrei Chazal and also in Chassidus, when you get to Bina, that you understand one thing from one Indian. You were taught to understand the other Indian by way of careful klolim, calculation on the basis of what you already learned before. And that's the Indian from Bina. Over here we call it Tavuna, not Bina. But if you look carefully and you come to the conclusion that the word Tavuna is anywhere from the root word Bina. It's a slightly different combination. And we might translate Tavuna as being the idea of careful calculation or deduction. Yeah, that's what Rashi says. You deduce inyanim from inyanim that you already heard. Or Badas, says Rashi, Ruach HaKodesh. So that's the thing that attracts the eye of the intelligent Chabadska reader, that he says that Das is the Indian here of Ruach HaKodesh. Ruach HaKodesh is a high madriga. When one thinks about it, Ruach HaKodesh means divine inspiration. And few are the human beings that can be described as having Ruach HaKodesh. And there's a delicate difference between Ruach HaKodesh and prophecy, Nevuah, as well known. But there considers that sometimes Nevuah is described as being higher than Ruach HaKodesh, and sometimes Ruach HaKodesh is being described as higher than Nevuah. Well, upon him, we see that it's not clear 100% whether Das, whether Ruach HaKodesh, whether Ruach HaKodesh is higher than Nevuah, or whether it's slightly underneath of it's around in that what you might call ball game, Dean, and it's around and in a similar bracket to Nevuah. Has a very, very high madrega. Ruach HaKodesh. So all of a sudden Rashi says that this Betzalel, he was benched by the Eibusher with Chochmah. Well, the Eibusher said he's giving him. He's filling him up with it. Ayinim from Das, Ruach HaKodesh. So the intelligent reader says, what's up Ruach HaKodesh, man Chashmei, in this Indian? So we have to say that since it's written that the Eibusher said, I have called in the name of Betzalel, I've personally called him, and I've set him aside, and I've filled him with these inyanim. The Eibusher said he is filling him with these inyanim. Then we have to decide that they've all got a divine touch about them. And there's something miyuchad in the inyan from Chochmah, how it was by Betzalel. Even a Chochmah can be described as Rashi defines it, and the same with Tavuna. But the inyan for Das, as well known and considered, Das means that the mensch unites and he identifies with what he learned. And the Kemavur and Tanya Perigimel, that the inyan for Das is a kinyan atzmi by the Adam. It's not just that he knows the inyanim, or just that he was mekabel the inyanim, but they become him. He lives with the Zach, and it becomes Pnimi Yusei. And the Father, Alter Rebbe writes over there in Perek Gimel that the inyan for Das is Pnimi Yusamidas v'chiyusa. All the rest of the mensch, which is his midas, and mamere, his machshava, and his dibur, and his maisik, all of them are dependent on a chayis and a inmudness, a pinimis that he gets from the inyan adas. Well, the inyan for Das is the power in the moyach to provide the whole rest of the Adam with a iskashras pnimiyah. Okay, do him a first but that that's the inyan adas. And since this is coming from the Eibusher, So if these inyonim, which are anyway below a gift from the Eibishter, or they're coming in as even that they're das, that they unite with B'tzal and they become his guiding line, B'chol ha'inyonim, and B'chol ha'malachas kula. Ein Mensch knew all the malachas. We have to say that what he became united and he became miskasher be'etzem with the inyan of the Horoth, from the Rebishter Benegeh to making the Mishkan, or that was Ruach HaKoid, it was a inyan that he became full of a divine koyach and a divine spirit, which Einochanami came from the Chokhmah and the Tavuna of it. It was a inyan of his yachtas with him, Ad Kerikach, that he saw things in a divine way. Ruach HaKoid. And that's a Pirat Ikizah. And it's interesting that in most of them are Rashi that I saw, they're not Meir Al-Kah. Pirat Ikizah. It's a door HaBoiler. That demands a pure Ruach HaKoid. It's not often Rashi. They say in Yiddish, the Chassidim say, I mean, Ruach HaKodesh, you don't just throw Ruach HaKodesh around, you know, just say, oh yeah, that's Ruach HaKodesh. And all of a sudden Rashi writes, oh yeah, Ruach HaKodesh. So we have to say, Behechter, a famous Heora from the Ramban, or it comes again the Ramban, and he says, wait a minute, man, what was it is that you found a man like Betzal ben Uri ben Chur Amati Yehuda, that he knew all these wondrous inyonim? And you realize what they did with just with the aura. There was these three arenas that they made. There, two of them were gold, and one of them was made out of wood. And the capoeiras and when it came to the menorah, Moshe Rabbeinu threw up his hands. He said, "Hey, how am I going to do that?" And that's what became. The Eibishter helped him out, but Miyuchad over there by the menorah came over. In Rashi, that he showed him a menorah shalesh, or according to another one, he mamish made the menorah for him by throwing the gold into the fire, and it came out a menorah. There's enough other inyonim nifloim that weren't made b'derech siyata d'shmaya from Himmel. So I saw to Shara, he got a peoples that just came out a few weeks out of it. Yeah, for a few weeks, a couple of months, how long it took on to the Indian, and they've been 210 years in a Zamin Shibud, in a Zamin enslavement that's not, like the Rebbe brings on many occasions, that's in a way the most terrible of all the Goddesses that's ever been, the infant Mitzrayim. And people were Mushubadim, Bavedas Perach, B'Kol Einyonim. So how on earth was it shayat that a mensch would know all these inyonim? He'll say, is a shayat that he would know all these tremendous craftsmanships, to work with gold and with silver. Yidden and Mitzrayim never saw gold and they never saw silver. The Mishka was, what is it? I mean, even al Tzadayis in the biggest civilization that you can have, you don't find people who have a gift. Allah has come by people that were slaves to the Mitzrayim. And the first of the Ramban, that the whole thing is a divine inyan ad kerikach. And we find that he brings down a medrash, Ramban, that the Eibishter showed Moshe Rabbeinu literally a sefer of all the deiros, which was Sifrish Adam Arishan. Adam Arishan wrote down at one point all the deiros that are going to be and that it was written over there in that sefer from Adam Arishanan that there was a neshama was going to be born into the world called B'Tzalel ben Uri ben Chur, and he was going to do all the inyanim in the Mishkan, and that's why it's called B'Tzal Keil, in the shade literally of the Rabbeinu Shalom. Right from the very beginning, the Eibishter had him under his wing, that he was going to, right from the beginning of creation, the Eibishter saw for us that the Kamazayid, that his inyan would be to do all the malachas in the Mishkan. And remember, that was a inyan was already made by Bezdin Shomayla Mireish. It wasn't a Doa Tivi Klalu. This right the Ramban. And he says, Ad Kerikach, That therefore there's a famous, the Gemara Masechta Brachas, right near the end of the Masechta. Nun hey bringt the Gemara dort a ganze Vikur between Moshe Rabbeinu and Betzalel. How are you supposed to, should you make the Kelim first, or should you make the Urias first? Should you make first of all the Mishkan and build up the actual Mishkan and then put the Kelim inside it? Or should you make the Kelim first and then build the Mishkan? A famous Vikur between them. And in the end, Moshe Rabbeinu was made it to the Shituf and Betzalel. And he says, Betzalel Kel Hoyisa. When I was hearing all these inyanim in the mountain, you must have had the information. Pink to see where I heard it. Mimaki Macha. Betzalel Kel Hoyisa. You also in the shade of the Eibishter. The truth of the matter is that was my cheshbon. When I said to make first of all the kelim and achreza, the Urias, that was my cheshbon. Of Einochanami, the way I heard it on Mount Sinai was that way, the way you say. So here we see an amazing case of Moshe Rabbeinu gehalten, even though he heard it one way in the Seder Hadvarim, he nonetheless felt that he should do it by even kach for practical reasons. And Betzalel corrected him, and Betzalel said, wait a minute, the emes way should be by even kach for kach. And so Moshe Rabbeinu said to him, Gival, Betzalel Kelo, he said, you're quite a mechutten. You must have been in the shade, and you must have heard what was being said, v'chula v'chula. So we see that actually Betzalel was well informed, and it was well stoked up right from the beginning at the Inyanim, from the Rebishter directly. And zweitens is, we see that the Gemara brings out there, Masechta Shabbos, Masechta Brachas, says the Gemara that Betzalel, when he made the Mishkan, he was Yodea L'Tzarev, Ba'Mishkan Oisiyos, Shebehem Nivro Shemayim V'Oret. The Betzalel was at Kedei Kach, as Amen Dikra Chacham, that he knew the basic Kof Beis Oisiyos, but he knew all the combinations in the Asara Mamaris, how they came about all the Nivroim. And that's quite an amazing. If you look in Shara Yichud V'Amunah, the Alter Rebbe says that that's in it, which says, Ein Peh Yochel L'Taveh. And nonetheless, the Gemara says that Betzalel was aware of these inyanim. If I remember, he had a mathematical mind of computer type greatness, which puts everybody else in the absolute darkness. And I remember we see then that this is all divine inspiration. It's like a derech hateva cloud, it was already prepared by Reishis Abriya. Maybe if we learn that way, then it's not surprising that Rashi says that Das is needed for Ruach HaKodesh, because Ruach HaKodesh, L'chora Pirushim, means that you're informed things and you're told things, Kilo Milmaila, and they become your opinion and your knowledge, but you really got a Milmaila without even knowing it, according to one shot. You know, they just runs your mind in such a way that you say things and you know things and you come to certain conclusions. Well, this is the emes kavanah from the Meibishn, but you just happen to know that that's the case without really knowing why you know it. How do you say it? As I come to say, and the Alter Rebbe once said that to somebody, and it's come Sipurim for the Rebbeim on different occasions, where it indicates that there were certain things that they just knew that was going to be the case. They didn't even know why they knew it. No, they just knew, and they said, Ruach HaKodesh, that that's the in. But Kachoyo, on Ochavay, to those who didn't listen to him. And Lafisha come to us that Ruach HaKodesh could be fitting in very nicely. Lafida shit, what the Ramban brings, the whole Inyan. And we have to say that the Chokhmah and the Tavuna are also al derech zeh, because Rashi says that Chokhmah is what you learn mipiyah acheidim. But actually, I feel that a most brilliant individual, it's not the kavanah that a man just from the day that he's born, that he just hears everything from the Eibishter. Only Moshe Rabbeinu was gifted with that way, and even so, there were certain things that Moshe Rabbeinu had to teach and he had to learn. Yeah, but derech ha'hezber v'chulu, ki yadua ben to the whole uniform Torah. according to all the different shittas that there are in the union. And the same with everybody that's born, he gets certain inyanim, but he's got to deal with them. And that's a kavanah eliyona, that we should deal with the inyanim with our own minds and our own koiches, and bring out the necessary maskanas for chulu. It is that if you have ruach hakodesh, then you reach the right maskana, and you reach the right inyanim l'fi harayah al pi Torah. And there was also by B'Tzalel the inyan from Chochmah, Masha Shomeya, Dvarim and Shomeya. That's the inyan from the emes Chocham. He's able to listen, and he's sam leiv, and he puts his ear to listen to what somebody else tells him. Like it's brought down in Pirkei Yovis, Zehu Chocham haloi made mikol Adar. That's how he brings it in Pirkei Yovis. That who is a real Chacham, somebody that he's able to learn from anybody. And so it's brought down in the Torah Shonim from the Rebbe Rashav, the Rebbe Rashav is masbir that Chacham is the from Bitul. As somebody he's devoted with emes of Bitul to the emes of Kavanah in everything, and to understand the emes, what is the Kavanah for the Meibishn in every union, then he's devoted be'emes to wherever that union can reveal itself to him, he'll be able to be makaber. And remember, he can hear from a very simple person, or he'll catch, and he'll have a chush to feel that in that particular union there's some very important divine message, and he'll pay attention, he'll be makaber, and he'll even be Adar b'shem Imrei. We see in the Megillah, the famous diuk, when I get to Esther, the Vatoimer Esther Lamelech B'Shem Mordechai, that she said the whole inyan over to Achashverosh, but she said it B'Shem Mordechai. Says the Gemara that Kol HaOimer Dova B'Shem Oimrei maybe Geula Le'olam. And so what's so great about it? You say over it, and you say it b'shem oimer. You don't say you said it, but you said you heard it from Pliny. You see, the whole Gemara is full of that. Now, the Indian is that when you're saying something to other people, you become so full of your own importance for chulu that it's a tremendous kishmak to say it. Kill you said it. Kill it as a dying in it. And if the emes of Bitul to the kavanah from the Meibishn is that you say things over b'shem oimroi. You say in the name of who said it. And Vipala, you go out of all your hagabalas, berega ahu, the Gemara and the Medrash also brought Medrash. So a tremendous chiddush b'zeh. And she brought down in Pirkei Yovis. That's one of the 48 inyanim. It's that's a tremendous chiddush that you go out of your whole matziyah. And the way to bring the geula is to go out of your matziyah. Why are people not able to be mekabel the whole inyan Moshiach so quickly? You have to work on them. You have to talk to them in a nice way and in a hopeful way, because a man is locked up in his matziyah, in his little world, as he calls it, in his own little dagadamas. And he said, what's up with the time Rashinu, and what's up with the Elakuz? What's going to be with my Tuesday night dinner? What's going to happen with my bank account, and what's going to be with my bank manager for Kaitza? The Indian from Geula means is you got to be bottled. You have to be bottled, be'etzim. And that's indicated where a mensch, in the middle of his gishmach, in seichel, he's able to be mevatel himself like Amrei, v'ayim adova b'shem ha'imr. The Maharal Mipral is marich in that Indian, and it's safe at the Megillah Esther. Aber auch von ihm kommt der Islafise, that a Chacham is somebody that is mekabel me'achayrim. And I feel you're a mensch mit Ruach HaKodesh, but sometimes you have to be mekabel from Anoshim michutz mimech. And that's a sign that your emes is devoted, be emes, a zehu chacham, very does a chacham. Aluyim in Mikol, who is a chacham? Tights the Mishnah, that somebody who learns Mikola. That's one on the Baal Shem Tov. It was Makabel Rafil from Goyim, for Nochrim, and so on, when he heard from them certain inyonim, and he said that's a nitzot, Eloki, which has been sent from heaven, we have to learn from them. Okay, this is one on. What the Baal Shem Tov defined that by saying, famous klal, that you have to learn from everything you see and hear, because everything you see and hear is a Gila Eloki. It's a Hashgacha Pratis from the Eibishter. Therefore, everything you see and hear teaches you something. It teaches you something about the Eibishter. And if it teaches you about the Eibishter, it teaches you about how to serve the Eibishter and how to appropriate your life to the Eibishter. That's the union from Chochmah. But if you got Betzalel's Chochmah, you got to say Chochmah with the Amalia, he said, the Eibishter, he's got to fill him up. Then comes, he said, everything Betzalel heard, he heard it in a divine way. And he was able eventually to put together all the oases of the Shemayim v'Oretz. On Tavuna, it's more considered as Tavuna is Malchus Bina. It's like a infant oasis of Bina. In other words, a Bina is the etz power to be masig, and Tavuna is like reaching a maskana, going down into the levushim of Machshava Divrei U'Maaseh, into oasis. And you come to a conclusion on a maskana, because Bina, that he call it, flies around with different svaras and different shilas and kashiyas v'chulu. Well, that's the union from Tavuna. Therefore, what do is you understand in your own mind something that you gain from the other person, and you learn from that maybe to understand Adar Inyan. And you see how that Inyan you learn from Pliny, or that enriches your whole Inyan because it helps you to understand Adar Inyan. And somebody who's not like Betzalel, he hears all sorts of Inyanim, and he puts them in his notebook, and then he goes home and shlaf tzachori. Or he polishes his car, or he mows his lawn, okay, it's a bit. But people who are like Betzalel, or they hear things that go into their head, and they start saying, what can I now do with that? How can I understand? That's the union from Tavuna. Not stam, but in a practical way, coming into oisias, which bring eventually to Maisa Kiyadua. But Maisa is also ois. In other words, the way you act is also a way of talking. Kiyadua, or Mufrusa. And Mamela Lefize, that's the inyanim that were given to Betzalel. And Tafar, he was a divine person, Betzalel. He was a mensch, very, very similar to Moshe Rabbeinu. Ad Kedi Kach, he had a vikuch with Moshe Rabbeinu. He even had a discussion, and he won the discussion, Kaviyah. And Moshe Rabbeinu was moided to him, and this is well known. Moshe Rabbeinu was I mentioned that he was moided, like we find later on in Parashat Shmini, that Moshe Rabbeinu was also moided to Aaron and Bono. And if we see that Moshe Rabbeinu was tachlis habitul, he was mekabel from Betzalel, and he said, "Ein machanami." The word you were Betzalel kel hoyisa. It's not that he achieved a chiddush, because Moshe Rabbeinu knew that was the case, but he wanted to do it differently for a practical reason. And he had to admit that in these inyanim, it's better you just do them the way you're told and Gandhi. Lafize comes out of Betzalel was a politic man, and he was chosen right from the beginning of the Bria from Zman Adam Harishon, and that's his name, Betzalel Keil, in the shade of the Eibishter. So as though Maimonim from Siddur, they mention the same Benegeta Oli Yehov, but I can't go into everything now at one go. I just wanted to make that point. Be'ikar, and we see that it's brought down in Shmorim that Shevet Yehuda is even the Malcha Yisrael from Shevet Yehuda, and Yehuda Beklau, the very high Madrega senior from the Shem Abaya, is Marumas in the word Yehuda, Ve'ilu, that's Bavaisat Te'in and Rachamim, on Beklau, the from kingship is rulership over all the Matziyas, and then the from Don is the from Gevulis, and the from Mishpat and Din, that had to be like a combination of Rachamim and Din zusammen in the making of the Inyan. In other words, because everything has to be B'tachlis Hatiyah. If you miss out on a split millimeter, then Cholili can use all the gold and it didn't work out. And if it has to be B'tachlis Hatiktuk, and you might say B'derach HaTzachus, you're almost in a Milsa de B'dichusa, and therefore you need a lot of Rachamim. It's always good. Everything should be b'tachas hatiyah. I will come over in the Inyonim, in the Mishkan, together with the Tachlis HaTiktuk, they also have to be Oiris Elyonim, what they are B'derech Rachamim, and then Amaylam, we say the Diktuk V'Aishtaush. Aber auch von ihm, Fiese, the Mishkan is called as an amazing in him. And the inyan for Malacha, was it that he was given Tavuna V'das B'chol Malacha. Where is the Taich? Yeah, Malacha. And we find that the whole inyan of the Mishkan is called Malachas HaMishkan, Malacha, time after time. And the only other place in the Torah where we find this inyan of Malacha mentioned in a Oifen Meruba, like we do here, is in the inyan for Ma'aseh Bereshis. We say that the Eibishter is making the whole Sheshes Yemei days of the creation is called Malacha. And so what's it the inyan for Malacha by the Eibishter? What's it to say that the Eibishter, because we see that the Eibishter was rested Kaviyachol on Shabbos. The Chiddush in Shabbos is that Boi Shavas Mikol Malachtei Asher Bora Elikim La'asei. So what may ever be the Taich in the Bora La'asei is another inyan. Or we see that Mikol Malachtei. It was a shot that the Eibishter made Malacha. What was the time? So then we find that the famous matters, but the Amin asked Rabbi Yeshua, a kavanah of Rabbi Yeshua ben Chananya, or like another Gilsa, he asked a shal to Rabbi Akiva. And he said that on Shabbos you're not allowed to do any malachas. And the Eibishter says he told you not to do malachas because he Kaviyachol was also Shabbos b'yom Shabbos. Frektamin by Rabbi Akiva, we see that the Eibishter brings down Geshomim, he brings down rain on Shabbos, and he does that all sorts of inyanim. With his world, pink to see normal, Kaviyachol, he does all the malachas over again, afil Shabbos. Zoktim Rabbi Akiva, Moshe, La'eiru v'hoitzua. It's Moshe like where you can't take you out from the Rishus HaRiyachim to the Rishus HaRabim. And therefore you have to have an Eiru, should make. In other words, we can't be moitzi from any Rishus, believe in an Eiru, and even that doesn't help us from Rishus HaRabim, Rishus HaYochid, only Rishus HaRabim midrabanan, a Karmelis, can help you on Eiru, but Mamish midaraisa, an Eiru helps me. And if says the Rebbe Akiva, that's by us down here. But by the Eibishter, there's no two Rishus. By the Eibishter, it's all one Rishus HaYochid. You see, he went out and he's not coming back. Now he's going, who knows what's on with him. He walks out. Maybe it's a nice trick, he sort of gets himself signed in like these guys. They go to get themselves signed in and they crawl out behind him. Forbidden to say these things there. Because Al Khafani, he got himself signed in and that's it. Among me, right? The Eibishter's got only Rishus HaYochid, but the Eibishter's there's no Rishus HaRabim or Rishus HaYochid. Everything belongs to him. He can move everything around inside the Rishus HaYochid. Comes again the Alter Rebbe, and the Alter Rebbe writes both in the Likutei Torah, the Alter Rebbe and in Torah. And the Alter Rebbe asks a Shaila, well, that's all very nice, but that's one Malacha, the Malacha of, how do you call it, Hoitzah, from Rishus HaYochid to Rishus HaRabim. And that's a terror, that by the Eibishter, no Rishus HaRabim, no Rishus HaYochid. What about all the other Malachas? The Eibishter lights fires, what about all the other Malachas? So there's a politic terror from the Alter Rebbe, but the Alter Rebbe answers that in Emerson, by the Eibishter, all the malachas are in a way going out of his reshut, and therefore the ultimate terror is that he doesn't ever go out of his reshut, even though he does, but he doesn't. And even more than that, the Alter Rebbe is up to Likutei Torah that all the malachas on Shabbos all of them somehow or another are connected with the inyan from going out of your reshus into another reshus. It's clear that you're moitzed the chayfetz, or the inyan, from one inyan to another inyan, but this is b'dimyan, clear that you're changing its matzav. When it's mokim himatzaut, b'toich advarim, or b'pashtus advarim. In other words, the inyan from hoitzoa, me reshus l'reshus. Is het de Alter Rebbe in de Maimon van Mila, in Lamnatzeach Lashminis, in Pasha Tazriya. Is het de Alter Rebbe. Maar is dat de Alter Rebbe, a gewaldige chiddush, that every real malacha involves being meshana, I think, from one inyan in a reshus to another. It's like going out or in. And therefore the inyan from the whole Masechta Shabbos opens with the malacha of Chaytzah Mereshus L'Ra. Sure. Many other people have been a bit discouraged. They got so bitten by that very difficult period at the beginning of the Masechta Shabbos that they said, who's got caught to learn the rest of this Masechta, because it's very, very difficult inyanim over there. Very difficult period and very mystifying. Yeah, Klolim in this whole malacha from Reshus L'Ra. Reshus. I'll come upon it, we come to it. Yeah, that the inyan from malacha is by the Eibush, the killer that he is, yeah, Mashana Reshus. And therefore the Alum Teretz is he not. So where the tight? That for the Eibush to bring about the whole inyan from Shamayim V'Oretz, it's like a Yerida Lagabe. It's an inyan from Yerida into the Seder of a whole inyan of Oilamas, like going out from his Reshus of Mumda Lagamri, from the whole inyan for the Shtausos. When he comes down, and literally he moves things around, yeah, for the sake of upon him of the Nivroim, that they should think that that's him, that's the way it works. Even though V'yamis there's no one sees there's only him, V'chulu. And Mamel Kundra is that the whole inyan from Malacha by the Eibush is talking Yitziyah Mir Reshus, but take another Reshus which is not really here. He's not the Alter Rebbe do it in Likutei Torah. Amam, lefi zeh, the inyan from Malacha is Enoch Hanami, a Yerida, v'ashpola, and it's like a going downwards and a casting himself down in order to make a thing look as if it's being mishtanim me'inyan le'inyan. Even though it's not really mitzvah, that's a deterrent of inside the kasha, bleibt es good. As they say in Yiddish, in the kasha line, inside the kasha it's good. Well, it's not understandable in a way. Edify, lafizeh kumteis, that malacha is a inyan which is mishana a inyan mereshus l'ra. Edify, we find that the Gemara says that a malacha she'einu malachas machshavas is not a malacha on Shabbos, and you're potter. It could be the midrabanan. It's not proper to do it. Or be your potter me'oini. You haven't really been over a malacha if you didn't have a kavanah, and your kavanah was carried out, and you got a result which is lefi the kavanah that you need in that malacha. And that's called malachas machshavas osra Torah. Yeah, the far you guys have run to your dad. Did you run Shabbos yet, you guys? The far there's a whole meaning from malachas. A malacha she'ein tzricha legufa is afapiyus ha'isa deraisa of a potter. Malacha she'ein tzricha legufa means that what came out the teitzah of the malacha is something you don't really need. So you did enoch malacha, but it doesn't have an enough gemina legabe you. And the far it's not a malachas machshav. And the far the same with a dova she'einu miskavein. It's also the same. A dova she'einu miskavein is potter. It's not a inyan, but there's yesh oinish b'zeh. When it's a dova filu b'zeh halten, it's a filu mutter lechatchila. A dova she'einu miskavein. Well, that you didn't really mean that to happen, but you did something and it happened. So even though you did a whole malacha, but if you probably didn't mean that, you were really thinking of something else, and that occurred. It's ein al zeh shem malacha. Amamel falls if he said that the inyan from malacha is a shinui mereshus l'ra. Shows that the inyan previously was in one oifen, now it moves into another state. Legabi you a kavana that was carried out, and a toitzah legabi you. In other words, that's the kavana of the mensch to use the Eibishter's creation L'tachlis mesuyam. That he uses the Abel's creation to get a certain goal, a certain aim. And in that gufa, he has to do it in such a way as to good aims and good things. In other words, he has to use that power to make it the way the Abel will. And that's such an interesting Indian that the Abel doesn't machayev him to do that. But the Abel expect him at the start. And that's the Indian. Sheishes yomim ta'avid u'b'yom hashvi Shabbos l'Hashem alakecha. So everybody says Sheishes yomim ta'avid. It sounds like a tzivui. You have to work 6 days. And some people hold us it. And if we paskin that it's not mamish a tzivui, it's a reshuz. You have to work for 6 days. But it's not that you mamish machuya. But the Hashem said you should do something to do malachas. That's the kavanah. And that's the inyan of a malacha that you mashana with a certain goal, from one inyan to another inyan. And if you think carefully about all the same with bishul. Bishul means you change the inyan. That's a mahusa. You mashana, it's matziyah. If you're boiler means you took a thing from one situation, now you made a dover levat. Bifnei atzma, nish, a dover shel ta'arevit. All the inyanim, they're all shinuim, ikriyim in the matziyas v'nazach, but they carry out a certain tachlis and a certain kavan. And that's the inyan from what the whole Brias Elam is called malacha. If you look at it, it's very interesting. The word malacha seems to be the word malach with the hey at the end of it. And I was mechapis for Sfarim, and I couldn't find anybody that says it. I'm always saying b'derech hefshe. And there's a sefer from the Radak where he usually gives all the root words of all the great words in Lashon Kodesh. And I got so many Sfarim around, sometimes I lose my Sfarim. They're not Masuda later. It's not Masuda the way they're Beklauma. Just to all give off in the hin and a hair. Couldn't find my Sefer Al Michlil from the Radak, so I couldn't look it up. It's likely that he says something. It would look as if the word malacha is the word malach with a hey. And what is a malach? A shliach. A malach is a shliach. And the ineffect malacha is that you are a shliach to carry out a certain task. And the Eibishter Kaviyocho made himself a shliach to carry out certain inyam. He shouldn't lie. Because that means that in your mind you give a sinus mokim to that type of tipshit. And as Rahman mentioned, well, they get in a room and they're looking for their fun and their naicha derucha in a solche shtus for tipshit, which is also masukim, derech hag. And Sameir und Dikar Rahman so für solche Menschen. But the fact kommt is a mensch, when he does a malach, he's a shliach. And when you think about it, this is a you are actually a shliach of carrying out a certain tachlis in the world. That's called malach. The Eibishter had to bring about a whole world, and he had a tachlis bedover. That ultimately there should be a dira betach tachtoinim. Otherwise, what did he need to hold in? Shema. It's well known, the famous Shailem with the Ganze Ariches, and Afuk became, that's the inyan from malach. Mikol malach toy asher also. The Eibishter is gemacht. Asher also at the schema. Kabiyohel, the Eibishter went out into another rishut. That's the kashi from the min. And for Tim Rabbi Akiva, he doesn't really. He only does it for your sake. But actually, the Gabeinu does it in from Allah. Inside the world, that's the in from Allah. If we look at it carefully, jetzt kommt der Reis, that the whole inyan of the world and the making of the world is a malach. That's a malach. A person like Betzalel, the Gemara says that he knew all the Yosiyas and he knew the Tziruf Yosiyas of the Nivroim. I mean, that's an amazing thing. Das is a computer she'ain kamoyim. I don't know if a computer is as good as all that. I don't know anything about computers. This is from them Gordon. You have to be a pretty amazing computer. And Afal became. Betzalel was benched. Karasi b'shem. The Eibishter called him specially, and as well known, when he called somebody name, we had it the other night in Siddur. When he called a name, he called out on a person, all the inyan which are hidden inside him. That's the inyan for Kriya Shem. And Mamela kommt das at the Mishkan. What was the Mishkan? The Mishkan was all over again the world. It was the whole world all over again. And as I brought down in many Sfarim, Sifrei Musa, and I feel in Sifrei Chassidus, that all the inyanim in the Mishkan are connected inyanim in the Bria, the Yereis of the Hashemayim, and the Hin, and all Minizachen. So come to Islefi said that when they made the Mishkan, I asked the Shalom, what do they need to make a Mishkan? They got the world. What do you need to build a Mishkan? Ella, the Mishkan is a new world, because it's a world the way the Eivsher wants a world. It's a world. And therefore, what is the Indian? The Mishkan, says the Ramban, its Indian is to hold the Orah. That was the whole Indian. Matan Torah all over again. Or like the Rambam, it means a place where you can offer up korbanos. You can, as it were, cause an elevation, bring the whole world to a new type of union with the Eivsher Chulu. And therefore, the Fizeh comes out that the whole union of the Mishkan was to make a new world of a gewaltige Chiddush, to make a new world that the Eivsher would be begolui, that world. Because in the way the world is, you can look at the world and you don't necessarily see the Indian from Gilei Elikus, Ela Alidei Nisim. Or with Stam Gilei Elikus, you have to have a Yisboninah. And that was Avraham Avinu, that he tried to persuade the world that they should think, and they should be Mizboinah. Came along the Eivsher, the Matan Torah, and he gave you in Yonim, but through that you can see the world in another light. You see it Al Pi Torah, and you see that the world runs Al Pi Torah. And therefore the Mishkan was a new type of world. It was a world Al Pi Torah. And therefore the Orient is the center of the whole Mishkan, according to the Ramban, because that's the union of the Luchos, or that was something that wasn't in the world. That was something the Eivsher, the Ropke gave the Luchos, Min HaShemayim, Mi Yodei. And I feel the Luchos Shniyos, or that was a new union in the world, that now the world is functioning and has in itself the presence of the Torah. And I rise to the Kutshabricha Kulachah. The Eivsher and Torah, one thing, this is a base, Bais Lashem, Ki Beisi, base Tefillah L'Kol, it's my house today. And I mean, it's a whole new type of world, a world, Einu Chanami, Shamayim V'Oretz, Malacha, Metal Stin, but it's a world which is Al Pi Torah, and it's a world which is bottled to the Indian from the Torah. And if I state in my mind from the Rebbe of Tzemel Tzedek, I looked at Pasha in the Torah, in Pasha Tetzaveh, Zot the Rebbe of Tzemel Tzedek, who are these Chakmei Lev, who are these guys? The first one woke up at Tzaldi, he just knew everything. I mean, he had the whole, even from the ganze Brie, with all Oasis, with all Inyon, and he had Bruach HaKodesh, Begolo, and he had Chokmah Elokis, and Tavuna Elokis. So he just knew everything. By him, also given. And then it was Oliyov, he was on a slightly lower madrega, but also he was Itay, he was bottled, he was like Yeshua, as it were, in a way, when he get to the Mishkan. He was Moshe's Talmud, bottled to him Lagam. And then there was the inner for these Chakmei Lev, of a Lev, Kol Chakam Lev, who are they? Better than the Chakmei Lev. So the Rebbe, the Tzemel Tzedek in Mavaya, what is the Taisha Chakam Lev? A Leiv and Chokmah, two different things. A Leiv is your heart, and Chokmah is in the way. I mean, we couldn't say anything to the traitor. So therefore says the Rebbe, that someone said, normally what goes into the heart is Bina. And from Bina also only a Bechain, a Ha'ora Bubad, from the Seik who goes into to the heart. It causes a midah to come out. However, there's certain great people who send them be'emes also help, but divinely, with their Chachmele, or they bring the inner from Chachma. What Chachma is the emes of Beetle, and the emes of Ein Oid Mil. Vada can we in Tanya in the Hagur and Perik Lamed Hay. At the emes of Madrega from Chachma is Beetle to the Ebish to Mamish, or they have this inyan, the inner from Beetle, Ad Kedekach, that the Chachma is Meir in the Leib. And what is the Leib? The self. Leiv is where the person feels himself. Chokhmah is the one place where he knows that ain't no. But if they come together, then you got another sort of mensch altogether. Yes, as our mensch, that even though he's got medicine, even though he's in the world, even though he's got a physical existence in the world, but he feels the whole time and he lives with ain't no. Nobody. Sameya Bayim Dina Chok. And Chokhmah Leiv. So the Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek says that these are guys that they were mamish botil, but Matzias mami. And therefore, even though they were in Mitzrayim also, and they had all the tzaras, they didn't know anything about Malacha, they just was how to make all these unbelievable craftsmanships, but they couldn't say, do it. Oh, but they became Talmidim from Betzalel, and Betzalel was they knew what they cut immediately whatever. And the Father told us, staying the whole time, every 2 minutes watching these guys, what's going to be with them. The told him, and then he was Isaac in Zaininya. And the Father, that's in for Chokhmah Leiv. So that's the sort of Shaila. What is this for Madrega? And therefore, they were people that mamish betelim b'metzias, and therefore their reading was to bring the Torah, Chokhmah Satorah, into Chokhmah Maaseh Bereishis. They were able to be mamshik, the Indian for and the Torah into the Indian for Maaseh Bereishis. And to bring a Gilui, Elokus, but that was the Tachlis of the Mishkan. That was the grand Tzerinia for was it Megemacht Mishkan. And I'm never nimtza that these are people, they bring the Indian for Torah mamish into the into the Maaseh Bereishis, into all the pratim pnimium of Maaseh Bereishis. And afar, there was an amazing combination. And afar, does it the Kasal Chadaitach, we can say maybe B'derech Esher, does it the Kasal Chadaitach, that maybe you could do this on Shabbos. I mean, these are people that they're betelim b'matziyah, and the Meir by say they ain't no Movada, and they know all the pratim of the Kavanah Lakis by Inyan, and it's a very important Inyan. We need the Mishkan urgently, and we need it badly with the whole Inyan. Maybe they can do it on Shabbos. So you might say, where's your Inyan Bazeh? So we see that's brought down and considered why is it takid that on Shabbos also on Malacha is awesome, because the whole week, Elokus is beherim from you. You don't see Elokus, and it's beherim. And if you're allowed, as it were, since the Abish is not looking, you're allowed to do certain things. You can do, and on the contrary, according to the Baal Shem Tov, the Abish wants you should do it. And that's the Indian, you have broshus. Therefore, it's not a mitzvah, you have broshus. You have to make malacha. Over Shabbos, you've got to give in the Shema. Havaya, Shabbos lahavaya, the whole world is different on Shabbos. If you do malach on Shabbos, it's like you're making yourself a Messias in front of the king. So I make myself a Messias, my age. Well, the Gemara Masechta Chagiga, what the Gemara brings to it. There was this person that he was giving trouble to Yidden, he was in front of the king to it. And Rabbi Yeshua ben Hananiah was also there. And he wanted to try and put Rabbi Yeshua ben Hananiah in with the king of all night. And he made a sort of a sign like this to somebody, that they should do something, or he made a sign at Rabbi Yeshua ben Hananiah, and the king is sitting there and he's sort of making a sign at somebody else. So the king said to them, take him out and have him immediately executed. What's that the guitar? So he said, man de machve b'moche kami malche. Somebody who makes a sign to somebody else in front of the king, he has to be how do you call it, executed. So what's that the guitar? So the answer is, when you're standing mamish in front of the king, you have to be betachlis abitul. You have to be a zoi bottle. That you have no seers. Therefore, if you wave at another person, then you're making out as if he and you are a man. That seers look up at the king. You can forget about the king for a few minutes. You can carry out your relation with somebody else. You can make a sign at him. So, in the middle of the week, you're allowed to do that. Oh, but Shabbos with this Meir for the Shem Havaya, and that's Meir Lamata into the world. If you do that on Shabbos, then Chas V'Shalom Yechayev Nis. steht in Sfarim, Azay Retzachas, Arum in Derog mit Tzesecha, V'oid Mekaymus, but Chassidus is Masbir, that's the Inyam, why it is that on Shabbos, if you do a Malacha, you Chav Mizrach, based on that Gemara. And I remember in Nimtzah he said that on Shabbos, because you're supposed to be Batel, and therefore, if you do any Malacha, you're Chayiv. Well, those are the times that you're not really Batel, but in the weekday you were Batel. Now on Shabbos, there's Meir Ahayim Madrega. If you show that you're a Matthias, then it's not good. Oh, these guys wouldn't possibly show that they're a Matthias. These guys, even in the weekdays, they were completely and utterly Matthias. And they're not going to show that they're a Matthias on Shabbos. They don't know what it is. That's just what it is. And that's what the Gemara says. The Zohar Kodesh, I'm sorry, not the Gemara. It states in the Gemara that a Talmud Chacham Ikrei Shabbos. You know that? A Talmud Chacham is called Shabbos. It states in the Zohar Kodesh that they called Rashbi, one of the names they called him was Shabbos Koid. That a Talmud Chacham is in the Madrega for Shabbos. And I remember these guys, they were in the Emerson Madrega for Shabbos, even in the weekday. So, yes, if they would do anything on Shabbos, they wouldn't do it in the form of Matthias. They were bottled by Matthias Legamri. They would move things around the way they ever so wanted below. And that's why it is. It comes along Rashi and he makes two warnings. First of all, he makes a warning to Moshe Rabbeinu, and he says, Ba'ator. What is that? Rashi says, that you are like this. I've commanded you. Don't let it be an easy thing in your eyes. Well, Moshe Rabbeinu's got to go around being an easy thing in his eyes, but what is this far Loshendom? And Moshe Rabbeinu might have thought that he and his mention, they can work on Shabbos. Not work, chas v'shalom, but they can do the Malachas HaMishkan on Shabbos. Because they're anyway part of B'Teilim B'Matzias, even if they do something on Shabbat, they're not showing they're a Matziyah, they're bottled Matziyas Lagam. And that's why it's written in Rashi, V'yator, and then it's written another general warning to the Jewish people as a whole. And that's why we have to be told, and Derech Hager from Dem Lampman, another in how do we know what is a malacha? We know from the Mishkan. And now it'll be very good that the whole inyan from the Bria Shamayim V'Oretz, or that's the inyan from the Malachas HaMishkan. That's why you're not allowed to do a malacha on Shabbos, because that's the inyan what the Eibishter Kaviyach did. The Eibishter had to rest from that, so everybody's got to rest. Doesn't matter who it is, klal. We have to be told that. Otherwise, we mightn't have thought it, but again to the Chachmei Lev, and at least the people like Moshe Rabbeinu, Tzal, Talmidov, that they were working in the Mishkan. Therefore, Rashi points it out very unusually. There was a special warning to Moshe Rabbeinu that you don't make any mistake about it. Who's Moshe? Why would he make any mistake about it? And from that we see that on Shabbos, no matter who you are, there's this tremendous inyan that everything becomes forbidden, even if you're bottled by Matthias. You can't do anything on Shabbos. Because everything goes up on Shabbos, the Kisvei Arizal, that this is tremendous aliyah of all the owners, everything goes up and becomes bottled in the Shema Havaya on Shabbos. However, we see a most amazing thing Benegel Purim. Have you ever noticed Benegel Purim? By Purim, it's written in the Gemara, in Dafei, Amud Beis, as Zot the Gemara Dorit. If you look in the Megillah, you see a Shinui. The Mordechai wanted to make Purim into a Yontev. He wanted to make it into a ganze Yontev, but they didn't want Makabel. Well, Kibru Alayu, they weren't Makabel. And what were they Makabel? They were Makabel to make it a Yom Mishtev, a Simcha, but not a Yontev. Much as you like, we'll make Sudas, we'll make Freilich, and we'll send Mishlah Bonas, and we'll give Matonas Life. What you want, Mordechai. But Machan's Frayons, we're not prepared. I state in the Gemara. How the Gemara learned it? Because at the beginning, after the whole victory over the Amalekites, it's written that Vayiktoy Mordechai, he wrote this Indian to them, the Shigeras, It's written last year, as a Yom Haba Asor, L'Chodesh Adar, Mishta v'Yom Tov, Mishta v'Simcha, Yom Simcha, Mishta v'Yom Tov. And then after it's written Matonis Levi, Mishleach Monis Yishlev. And later on when it's written V'Kibel HaYehudim, that the Yehudim Kabel, V'Kibel Aleim, Ashikosav Aleim Mordechai, it's only written Yemei Simcha V'Mishta. That's all. It's not written Yom Tov. So the Gemara says, what did you do this? Elamai Mordechai wanted to make it into a Yom Tov. The Yidden weren't Makabel, they weren't Makabel, and they said it's enough to be Yemei Mishta. Mordechai and Yogi, well, they didn't want it. Nonetheless, it's brought down in Shulchan Aruch, you shouldn't make any malach on Purim. I just stated in Shulchan Aruch, it's not that it's awesome, it's mutter, but it's not a inif from covered, like I've been Purim to make malacha, and the whole business to it, to state in the Beis Yosef, that if you do make malachas and you won't earn anything from it, they won't bring you any real profit from it, but actually, you mutter b'asiyas malacha, the emphasis. Trouble was, because the Yidden weren't makabel. So Kutz again, the Alter Rebbe, right at the end of his Biurim in Megillah Esther, in Torah Era, and the Alter Rebbe must before we should do it, why is it that the Yidden weren't makabel and that Lamaisa Purim is mutter b'msiyas malach? Says the Alter Rebbe, because Shabbos and Yom Tov are all in Yom Tov aliyahs that the world goes up into a higher madrega, and it's makabel from the Shem Havai. And even the people who are bottled with Matthias of it, they would be some delicate Matthias if they did everything on that day. No matter what everybody, even Moshe Rabbeinu, has to be completely free of any malacha or any sign of any trace of malacha. He says that on Purim, it wasn't just the Shem Havaya, and it wasn't just Seder Shtalshel, or even L'mayla Mishtalshel, but it was Atzmus Alein. He said Purim was the very essence of Hashem himself. How did he even get there? They got there out of Mesilas Nefesh. I don't know where we were Masber, I think we were Masber, I don't know if we maybe, I don't know when. But there's a big difference. The other day when we spoke, a few people were all crouching around, how dare I speak to them before they doesn't matter, etc., etc. And we mentioned too that there's a difference between the Inif and Rusa de Liebe and Mesilas Nefesh. The difference between Rotz and L'mayla Mitam V'das, that can be even in where you're enjoying yourself. As you might say, you're having a tremendous bask in Gilei L'Kulas, tremendous life, and you got knowledge of Hashem, and you got Hashem is revealing himself, and it's tremendous, you got all the tremendous gishmak. Mesilas Nefesh means you give yourself away in God. And you don't do it for your own self, you have no benefit from them whatsoever, you give yourself away only for the sake of the Rebbe. Rak, who, you and a Yid and the Rebbe on their own. And that's the, how do you call it, the etzem of a Yid to etzemein say. Those are the atzmus of the Eivish and the etzem of a Yid. And I said the Alter Rebbe, it's not shayach. It's not shayach in Azamatu. Talk about the Inif and Malacha being also or not also. He said, when is Malacha also? Well, that's when you're within some Indian of Gilui. Alright, L'mayla Mishtalshel, but it's got some shaykhs to the Indian that there's a bria of the world, that there's some, how do you call it, importance in the whole Seder. And if Shabbos and Yom Tov means that you go up, regular madrega, into that madrega where everything becomes bottled. Any form of chosen path or any Indian of a carrying out of a goal in the physical world, which is called malacha, that's out. Even if you bottle by Matzia. Even if you bottle by Matzia. Until you're Moshe Rabbeinu. So when you talk about Atzmus, it's not shaykh the whole Aliyah. Because Atzmus is everywhere, that's him. It's not shaykh Aliyah, it's not shaykh here. Your Aliyah is not shaykh Madregas. No, this is Atzmus Imami. And if you don't have to have Yisur Malacha. It doesn't make any difference. That you can be with the Eivishter, Mamish Ba'atzmusah, like it was Purim, even if you're doing Malacha. Even though nowadays you don't do it. or even if you're doing malacha, even if you're just in the world the way you are, and that was the time why it is in Lubavitch, that in the time of the Rebbe Rashab, that they used to go in Big Day Chol. They didn't wear Big Day Shabbos on Purim. The only thing for Big Day Shabbos, Purim is a chiddush from the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach. Because the Rebbe says that everything nowadays that's in any form of a yontav has to be Kedei L'Karev Yemei HaMashiach. And when Mashiach will come, we're going to be dressed up in yontav, dicker clothes. It doesn't matter what Purim Eiches are. We've got to be ready every second for Mashiach, particularly happens to be a yontav. In the old days in the Lubavitch, only to the Suda maybe and things like that, they used to put on the yontav dicker clean. But say the Chassidim used to go and push the kleder. It's the same meaning. You don't need all the polished aspects. You and the Eibush are all alone. One with the Adar, the Pashtas. You don't need any. I say, how do you get there? You got to be prepared to give it all away, and you got to say, only for the sake of you and Ritzeinecha Chutz Mizeh Ein Shum Dor. And that's what the Yidden did on Purim. That's what they did on Purim. They had they never saw that anything was likely to be good, and it was a bitter matzav, and many of them were already going to Achashverosh's Suda, and they were all into the guns of politics, and the other masters, and the other, a lot of grimy sort of geschäften, with the whole unit, and nonetheless, all of them, the old places in Torah, and I know 3 places where it's in Torah, everybody, all the Yidden together, all became aroused in such a way that also, etzlam machshavas chutz, they never had one thought the other way around. And that's the pshat for Ki ha-Yehudim. And that's Kri and Aksiv. It's written in the Yovid, and that's why you read it. And the other one's also written in the Yovid, but you read it b'loshen Rabbi. Kimu v'kiblu. The halacha is that you have to read it b'loshen Rabbi, even though it's written b'loshen Yochid. Over here it's written v'ki beil ha-Yehudim, b'loshen Yochid. That's the way it's written, and that's why you read it. Beil tzazah. Favuz, because all Yidden were just like one. Like the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, it's only the Gufim that divide you up. Mitzad the Etzim and the Neshama, everybody's the same. It's all you want, just chips off the old block of everybody's got exactly the same Neshama, just that the Gufim are divided up. I used to take Perek Lamed Pei, and that was the union from Purim. And Mamela Purim, it's you and him all on your own. The fire, it doesn't matter all the aliyahs or the inyan, and the fire mutar asiyas malach. You're so botel that it doesn't really matter what you do. You can do a malach and zelo mishaneh, like we said with the Chak Meleh. But the Chak Meleh didn't quite make it. In Inyanim, at the Mishkan, there was still a certain inyan for aliyahs and aliyahs and aliyahs in Oilamos and in Elikut. When Purim there's no aliyahs, no you read it, there's etzm salam. And if everything basically go. As he's up the Alter Rebbe in that manner. The people say the Kasha, why did Mordechai wanted to make it Yontif? If you look up over there, you'll see a Terzat Temai. Because everybody says, oh, you're going to start on that, and we have no koyah to hold out anymore. But if you look up over there, the Alter Rebbe taught them a Terzat. That Mordechai wanted to be the Madreg of Yom HaKippurim. He wanted to be like on Yom Kippur. Why do he want to be Yom Kippur? Because Purim and Yom Kippurim, I got a case as one on the famous tale of the Baal Shem Tov. And therefore Mordechai wanted to be like Yom Kippurim. He wanted to be a Yontif Takim. It should be bottled the Melachas and all the Inyan. We had to give all to Zainazai. And so the Yidden said, no. Purim's got a mile. Yom Kippur is only Kippurim. It's only just like Purim. That's the one on the famous Diuk Pazeh. And we are aware of the fact that Purim's got a mile even over Yom Kippur. That you can get to the Eibush in a way that only if you fast and do all sorts of Inyanim in Yom Kippur you can get to him. On Purim you can get to him even higher. Kivu just the way you are. And you polish off a big Suda, and you're supposed to polish off a couple of good Elachayim, not as all Inyan. And Afur Pikei doesn't make any difference. You're one thing with touch and saying so. Now, I mean, that's the Indian that Kibro Alai, the Yidden, like the Gemara says that Im Loi Neviim, Haim B'nai Neviim. The Yidden, if they're not prophets, then the sons of prophets. And so Mordechai was Makabel. Mordechai said, so they got a point. So you would have another Yontif on the Jewish calendar. And the father's an old saying by the Chavatsky Yidden, that pinkt is wie Bier and nicht Kelachayim, is as though you put him in nicht Kayontif. It doesn't quite fit, beer is not Kelachayim. By English. So, anyway, I'm trying to talk you guys out of being Mevinim in Mashke, and I'll tell you a word like that. Anyway, ultimately speaking, whatever comes out is the Purim is L'mayla Mikol Ramadidus Bakbar. Purim is L'mayla Mikol Inyanim. And the Torah, that's the Inyan that here we see with the B'tzalel, the Nuri, there was Inyan from Malacha. And that Malacha, nonetheless on Shabbos, even though the people were mamish betelim b'matzias, but on Shabbos, since it's Aliyah, you can always go up a bit higher, and you have to go. And if it's had Yechidah Shebenefesh, even they can't do anything on Shabbos. That was a chiddush. But Purim, the whole Indian from Malacha by Purim just doesn't have any place. It's not Shaya. Because this is the Indian from Ein Oid Milvade in a goof Kashpi Lamata Bepashtas in the world. Ein Oid Milvade in a simple sense, not theoretically. Mamish Papuyo Chaim Halacha Lamaitza. As they state in Torah. It's very hard to get over to people the message of the way Lubavitch understands Purim. When you think about it carefully, but the Hezbollah of the Alter Rebbe, I met up with a very nice person in Bnei Bach. I don't quite know him, I know who he is. Anyway, he says to me, he was dancing by with somebody, he was all, sort of in big Gilufen and everything. He said something about Purim, and I said, yeah, Purim is Mesilas Nefesh. So he said, what is Mesilas Nefesh? What do you mean by Mesilas Nefesh? He couldn't figure, what I meant. You see, these people don't, they need introduction to certain nuances. And he was a very good person. He maybe, if he hadn't been with another group of guys who were mamish Adar, he might have stopped and spoken with it. But they were sweeping him along. And he wanted to know, was it a Taich Mesilas? He said, what, does Billy, why is it Pirush Mesilas? So I said to him, Mesilas Nefesh means that ois rotzen. You don't have any rotzen. I don't know, it's very hard. Because they don't know the terminology, they don't know where you're beginning. But anyway, it's a big mitzvah to spread it around. And because Lubavitch is the inyan from Mesilas Nefesh, well, that's why the Rebbe talks about Moshiach. Because the Rebbe, his inyan is Ein Oid Mil, Vade in the world. The Rebbe is, how do you call it, Mordechai, Batzadi. And therefore, the Rebbe wants only it should be good. Maybe Geula. The Rebbe says, we can't have this world like this anymore. What's it touch out of the house? In order to be like that, you've got to give everything else away. You've got to forget about all the Balabatischkeit and all the other Inyanim and all the Sachen in the world. You've got to write it all up. Das ist Sapaya, das ist mein Name. Bring Mashiach, bring the Gula in the world. Then you'll know what Gula Elikustis you got. And you look back at the whole thing like a circus or something. Was it this fair? And if I have to have this whole meaning from the Mesilas Nefesh. That's it, guys. That's the difference between Moshe Rabbeinu and Mordechai. Not Chashon, Moshe Rabbeinu. But Mordechai, he brought Moshe Rabbeinu down into Shushan Abira, into the most crazy, Meshugana place on the map. And he brought down the whole union from Gilad Cruz into Moshe Rabbeinu. He brought it down in Matan Torah, and he brought it. It's unbelievable. I mean, Cholila V'chassid, to say anything against Moshe Rabbeinu. But it's all, in this tremendous world of everybody being into it, and they're doing this, and they're this. And here Mordechai had all these guys that they're all running around, Schutzkins mit Achashverosh. with all these guys, making big sudders and running around and getting political influence, and they're going to do it. Oh, verkrochen and verdreht. Ik weiß was. And nonetheless, Mordechai aroused him. He got him up and he said, listen, you guys, forget it. And he got him. That is an amazing thing. That is an unbelievable prayer. And that's the Shushan of beer is nothing. The Rebbe's taken on the whole, well, it's not nothing, but the Rebbe's taken on the whole. Well, I mean, that Madagascar or Eskimo land, or what's it called there, Alaska. The Russians used to own Alaska. They sold it for $7,200,000 or something to America. Yeah, they sold it for gold. Nothing's all in all over the world. You just name it, and you got it. This is Mordechai. I remember I came to Yolano. Every Motzei Shabbos is now doing. We quote that passage from the Megillah. It's a pillar. Every Motzei Shabbos. La Yehudim Hoysair, Besimcha V'Sosim V'Yikor. And when Moshe came to Yolano, came to Yolano, we should be with Mordechai Tzaddik, and we should be with Moshe Rabbeinu, we should be with all the Rebbeim. Take it from Miyad now. Amen.
I came in, I listened to my watch also, and it was just so 9:30 already. Just considering you have a fun time to time finds out. You said something about how he knew all the shortage of the places, how everything came down. He said that there's the Betzalel, right? He knew how all the shortage, how the Oisis all came down, and the Hashish. How does he know all the in the Mishkan, all the deep?
So good. That's what he said. Amalei was, I'll fill him up. He just like a full tank, but they just packed him in.
This past week,
It was unbelievable because he actually had a discussion with Moshe.
Yeah.
Moshe Rabbeinu said to him, Moshe Rabbeinu was waiting.
I think this past week I was learning. I learned a couple of prakim because
It's a very geschmack of Chumash, right?
What?
It's a geschmack of Chumash.
Yeah. Oh, hey, so this past week, since it's been haven't been steady yeshiva, so I've learned a couple of prakim in Hilchos basically. I see the Mishkan's very difficult, just in this bayah. It's this way, and then how much hours this way, and how much hours this way. I mean, now I know the entire thing feels fucking good. I learned it very slow. A few hours each pair, I do to get every detail and the way all the chachma, it's not so. It just you look at the picture, basically you just see pictures, but if you look at the detail, every little detail.
If you learn Gemara and some of the sugyas in Gemara, except in Yuma and other places, they talk about briefs.
But I first gotta learn the cloud detail again.
It's mind-blowing. I just can't picture how do you do it without all the computers, without all the things that they have now. How do they do it?
Rabbi, you said Moshe, Adam and Rishon know the Sefer. Do they have a Sefer? Do they have a Sefer? The Sefer that Adam and Rishon know, do they have it?
I don't think we have it. But the Sefer Yetzirah
from Avram Avinu
is written by Rom Avinu. Something fact.
that is they have, right?
That sort of may be in some way